People of God, do you know that God is going to be mighty and God is going to be gracious in 2018? Do you know it? Some of us might not, because 2017 wasn't so good. But I believe with all my heart that God is going to be good. He's going to be mighty. He's going to be holy. He's going to be gracious in 2018. If you're anything like me, you're really good at moving on to the next thing. And I'm going to try not to do that today, because 2017 is dead. It's gone. There's nothing we can do about 2017. There's nothing we can do about it, so let's get going on 2018. And if you're like me, you already have a really long to-do list. It'd be kind of fun to go around and compare everybody's to-do list for 2018. I bet they're getting really long already. We move on to the next thing, and we skip any kind of personal reflection, personal examination. That's what I love so much, starting this first Sunday with communion, because the whole point of it is to examine yourself. And a wise guy last week introduced us to a journey of faith. In 2018, are you and I on a journey of faith? Are we? Most days I feel stuck, to be honest. Are you on a journey of faith this year? Were you last year? Did you grow? This is a place where we care about each other's souls. Did you grow this last year? Are you going to grow this year? I care. I want God to use the gifts that He's given me to help you grow. And I know He's given you gifts to help me grow. I care if we're growing or not. I care if we're on this journey of faith together or not. So we need to start the year with a little bit of examination before we jump to all the things that we have to do and the things that we want to do. Before we start, like good Americans, start planning everything out in detail, predicting what might go wrong, what resources we're going to need, how we're going to get there. Our culture is very, very secular. Have you noticed that? And as I've been back in the States, I feel really secular. I feel like I'm part of the machine. It was interesting in Mongolia, the way they started their years, because everybody kind of processes a death and a fresh start in different ways. Mongolians, for their new year, they don't do their spring cleaning in the spring. They do it for their new year. Everything, whether it's January 1st, Mongolians tend to celebrate a lunar year, so it varies. But on the first day of the year, the entire house, everything needs to be spotless clean. Even all your clothes, everything needs to be perfectly clean on the first of the year. And so they spend all week making food, cleaning everything, so that the fresh start is really a fresh start. Everything is absolutely ready for the brand new year. And then the next thing they do is they get their local newspaper, and some well-known Tibetan monk will tell them that for this coming year, the most fortuitous direction is going to be east. So your first steps out of your house on the first day of the brand new year, and it will specify this. As you go your first steps out of your house, you need to take 3 steps to the east, then 2 steps to the south, 1 step west, 3 more steps south, and then 5 steps to the east. Those will be the lucky steps that you should use to make sure that you're starting off the new year in exactly the right way. And if you do it perfectly, then you should have a lucky year this year. It's really fascinating and it's really challenging. Me personally, how do we start a journey of faith this year? How do we start our year in a way that is absolutely supernatural? We're not secular people.
That's right.
We're spiritual people. How do we start this year spiritually, but not superstitiously?
Good. Yeah.
How do we start this year supernaturally in a way that we know is going to be accountable to the authority of God and to His glory? We have to be supernatural people. I propose this morning that we need first a reorientation, and then we need an ancient practice of remembering. And I'm going to spend a few minutes introducing a different frame of mind. That instead of the normal way we do things as Americans in a pretty secular way, we have all of our time slots for the day, for the week, for the year, and we try and fit our spiritual things into our time slots. Instead of doing that, I'm going to try and provide a reorientation where our understanding of time and how we use it fits into our spirituality. I'm going to spend a few minutes on that, and then we're going to actually practice in groups and as a whole community. We're going to practice remembering together. And not just trying to remember when the Ducks used to be good.
Ouch.
Or we're not even going to go close to the Beavers because I don't want anybody to hurt themselves this morning. We're going to remember, as God's people have always done. But first, let's tackle the reorientation, a new frame of mind for a new year. You and I are absolutely shaped by our culture. And most of the time we don't even know it. The things that we value the most, the way that we relate to each other, how we understand the world and how it works. All of these things are through the filter of culture. And time is usually one of the most obvious differences between cultures. How people understand, value, and use time. Now, we as Americans, all coming from the same culture, we tend to disagree on a lot of things in society. But you might be surprised at really, depending on our political differences or whatever kinds of differences, for the most part, all of us think about the world in the same kind of way because we grew up in the same culture. So our church service starts at 10. We even have a countdown on the screen. And it ends around 11:30, give or take 6.5 minutes, right? All of us understand that and expect that. And you don't even know that that's how you expect time to work until you go to another culture. Their church starts at 10, and you get there at 10 to 10, and their church actually begins at 11:30 and goes until supper time. Right? Completely different expectation of how time is going to work. The way that we use time as Americans is very future-oriented. We love setting goals. Now, a lot of us make fun of New Year's resolutions, but that's really how we begin to work. As children, we began working on goals. Goals for our classrooms, goals for sports. One of the main techniques that we have in sports is visualization. You're to visualize the perfect jump. You're to visualize crossing the finish line at a certain time. You visualize your perfect future, and then you begin to work backwards from that perfect future. How does everything need to work together in order to get there? What obstacles might you run into, and how can you predict those and adjust for those so that you can end up exactly where you visualize to be in the future? And then as we go, we are continually evaluating our progress. Okay, am I am I where I'm supposed to be at this point in the week, in the year, or in my race? How are things going? And because everything man-made needs maintenance. That's why New Year's resolutions are so hard, and why we make fun of them, because they take tons and tons of work.
Yes.
Goals that are man-made are going to take a ton of work to plan and predict and evaluate. Our view of time is very future-oriented. It's very individualistic. It's very task-controlled. And it's very stressful, because time is a finite resource and you never get it back again. You have to use every second, every minute, every day. You have to use it well, because you never get it back again. Well, I tell you, all of those things, most other cultures don't think about time like that. You go to another culture and, hey, dude, don't stress out. You get another 24 hours free tomorrow. You get to start all over. Chill out, right? Total different view of time. Now, our culture and how we use time has a lot of strengths. We're a nation of can-do people. We have a relatively high degree of control of our lives. So with enough determination, we can be anything. We can accomplish anything that we set our minds to. That's a great strength. Absolutely, a great strength. Most people don't believe that. Most people don't believe you can be anything you want to be or accomplish anything you want to accomplish. Most people in the world don't believe that. The problem with our worldview on time is that where's the faith? Because that approach to life, how do you fit God in? How do you fit faith and spirituality? More often than not, with that mentality to time, how do you know if God's working in your life? Because more often than not, it feels like He's messing things up. Right? You've already visualized your perfect future. Something unexpected happens. God, what in the world are you doing? Why are you messing up my life? You're knocking me off course. You're not protecting me or helping me out. You're messing up my perfect future. Contrast that with an Old Testament approach to time. Total different culture and a different way of viewing time. In Proverbs 16:9 it says, "The heart of a man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps."
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you can plan your path. You can try, but it's the Lord who establishes your steps. Jesus says to his disciples, don't be anxious about tomorrow. Don't be anxious about it. You can't change anything. Don't be anxious about what you're going to eat or drink or wear. I mean, that's silly. Look at the birds and the flowers. God takes care of all of them. Of course He's going to take care of you. Throughout the Old Testament, their view of time is that the future is unknowable. So we like to think that it's a straight arrow, a straight line, right? I'm at point A. I want to get to point B. So we have to plan as straight of a path as we can. Well, Old Testament people say, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. How are you going to know what's going to happen next month or by the end of 2018? It's not real because it doesn't exist yet. How can you see any of that? An ancient Jew is going to say, okay, there might be treasures in the fog of the future, but there might be pits too. How do you know? So yes, because of the way time works, we're continually moving forward, but an ancient Jew was always faced backwards. Okay, yes, I'm going through life forwards, but the only thing that's real about my life is what has happened. That is absolutely knowable. The way that God protected me from that disaster, the way He provided for our family when I lost my job, the way He did this and that, He brought me around that corner, He brought me over this log. When I fell down on the rock, He picked me up. He sent people to come and help me in that time. I can see everything in the past. It's absolutely clear. And because I can see so clearly what God has done for our people again and again and again and again, we can move forward in faith. We walk by faith, not by sight. I can't see what's going to happen. That doesn't mean I can't walk by faith confidently, because I know who God is, I know how He works, and I know everything's going to be okay because I see the past. We walk through life backwards. And we can evaluate our progress as we're going because we can see everything that's just happened. In 2017 or last week or this morning before church, you can see what's happened. The question is, are you examining where was God in that? Where was God this morning, or last week, or in 2017? Where was He? Because I'm not looking for Him. I'm looking this way. And sometimes we try and cope, and we try and look all the way to heaven, and half the things that we think about heaven, we have no basis for in the Bible. Heaven's going to be infinitely more than we can dream, but the Bible doesn't tell us much about heaven. If you're so focused on trying to see heaven, you're not going to see what God is doing now. Yes, we're moving towards heaven, but we're seeing what God is doing today, yesterday, 2017. We walk by faith because we're oriented backwards. We're looking for God backwards. We're reminding ourselves. And this is why the practice of remembering is so important throughout the Old Testament. I have to admit there are times when I'm reading the Old Testament, or even when I'm listening to the disciples giving a speech before crowds or before the Sanhedrin, I start thinking, Jews can be long-winded, but that would be racist. So while I'm starting to think that way, say, okay, 90% of your speech is introduction, get to the point already. I start to think about their culture, remembering all of the things that God has done for their people and who He is, the consistent might and grace that He has shown His people throughout time, the way that He has prepared them and brought them together for this particular crisis. That is the point. That is the point of the speech. Remembering who He is and what He does for us is the point of the speech. Remembering is a powerful tool for God's people. No one teaches us how to remember better than the psalmists. David had a lot of really rough years and he was really good at remembering. In Psalm 27, he gives us advice. He says, "Some trust in chariots and horses, but we remember the name of the Lord." What does that mean? What do Americans trust in? Our iPhones? Our bank accounts? Our political parties? What are we depending on? Where is our success? Is the success that we want to see in this coming year dependent on our ability to use our resources? That's what David is saying. Oh, you have lots of abilities and lots of resources. That's good. We remember the name of our Lord. That's where our strength comes from. That's where our confidence in the success that we're about to have today and tomorrow and in 2018, our strength comes from remembering the name of the Lord. As he faces his Goliaths, his Absaloms, he remembers the name of the Lord. Remembering is an ancient habit, and it's a foundation for a lifestyle of testimony. And here in a few minutes, we're going to practice our testimonies. Testimonies is simple. Hear what God has done for me. I'm going to remember right now what God has done for me, and I want to share it with you because he is good. He is mighty. That's all it is remembering out loud. Now, I have to say, when everything is wonderful, that's really easy to do. It's not hard. Right? Testimony is not hard. Something really good happened to me this week. I want to share it with you. My 5-year-old can do that. Testimony when things are good are not hard. Now, I do think, as a community of Desert Song, we need to be really intentional this year about making more space for testimony, because God is doing lots of good things in our midst. We need to make room for that. We need to make room for people to share the good things that are happening to them. But remembering is even more important when things are not going good. It's hard. It's much harder, but it's also much, much more important. If you think that if it feels like God has forgotten you this year, then I want to give you Psalm 77. Take that home with you. A man who is speechless in his misery because everything feels like God has forgotten him. And yet he chooses in the midst of that to say, "Yet I will not forget him." Remembering the name of the Lord is my strength. He has done this and this and this for my people and my family. And I know that this and this and this are his promises. And I know that his might and his holiness and his grace are not temporary things, they're eternal. And even though I don't feel them right now, I will remember who he is. And I will hold on to that as my strength to get me through this time. So I would encourage you as we get ready to share testimonies, you don't have to just share the good stuff. You can share the hard stuff. But remember together, because some of you are going to remember and you're going to have lots of things. God has done this and this and this for me, and it's been great. And sometimes that gives you strength, and sometimes as you share that, it's going to give your neighbor strength, because he's not feeling any of those things right now. That's why we need each other's testimonies. Because this week I don't have a testimony. I need yours. I need you to help me remember that God is good. Because I don't feel it this week. We need each other's testimonies.
It's true.
So I want to make time right now for us to practice it. Maybe 10 minutes. I want to encourage you, let's get into groups of 10, give or take, Just get in a group, and I want you to think about 2017, or maybe just this last week. Where have you seen God? What is He like? What has He done? And share that with each other. And I'm going to have a microphone here. In about 5 minutes, I'm going to give a signal. And because in some of your groups, you're going to hear some really neat stuff. And I want some of your groups to say, that is absolutely awesome. You need to go up here and share that with everybody. Okay? So let's get into our groups. Let's start sharing. And in about 5 minutes, your group can send up a few people to share for everybody. Let's do it.